Hi everyone, this is Ridge Route and I'm here to bring you the second gear review from over the hills. And today I want to talk about tents, and specifically ultralight tents for through hiking. So the tent we're using for the Arizona Trail is the Sierra Designs Tensegrity. It's a fabulous tent. It was really expensive though. It's a Silnylon tent, Tensegrity 2 Elite. And Sierra Designs only manufactured it between 2014 and 16, I believe. And I was fortunately able to buy 3 of them while they were still available new. The first one I destroyed, the Sierra Designs destroyed. I wore the pockets out that hold the pole handles twice, and the second time they said it was damaged beyond repair. So I was fortunate. I already had 2 at that point, so they damaged one. I was able to buy another one. So I got 1 in reserve. I managed to wreck the first Tensegrity tent I bought, not once but twice, because the holes or the pockets in the tent that are designed to hold the pole handles were abraded by the sharp edges on the handles of these poles. These poles are Compodels, Austrian poles that I bought for about 1/3 price, about $60 on Sierra Trading Post. And they work great as piking poles. I've only ever broken one when I fell in the Sierra doing Steve Roper's High Sierra route, but they really abrade the pockets on the tent, so I fabricated little covers to protect them. The covers are really low tech. They're getting a bit destroyed, but basically they are, I think it's 1 inch or 3/4 inch copper pipe insulation that's wrapped in some duct tape, or in this case Gorilla Tape, and that just serves to round off the edges of the pole handles so they don't abrade the tent. The first time that happened to me was after hiking in the Pyrenees, and Sierra Designs repaired the tent for free. The second time it happened was after hiking through to Tehachapi. The high winds rocked the tent back and forth. The pole handles abraded the pockets and they were wearing holes in them, so I sent it back to Sierra Designs, but they said that this time the tent suffered a major seam failure while they were trying to repair it, and it was probably a manufacturer's fault, they reckoned, and they were unable to fix it. So they offered me my choice of any other tent, any other 3-season tent they had, but they don't make the Tensegrity anymore. So I got the most expensive 3-person 3-season tent, and I've yet to take it out the bag. So in addition to the tent itself, I want to talk about the tent stakes. I use the MSR mini groundhogs. I find they have excellent holding power. And for a ground sheet, I use this material. It's like a woven nylon. It's not really woven, I think. And I first used this in France, and I was able to find it at Carrefour when I lost my Tyvek ground sheet, and I found that I like it a lot better than Tyvek. For one thing, it dries a lot quicker in the sun. Tyvek, being white, takes forever to dry, and Tyvek also tends to pill and collect organic debris, which I find kind of annoying. So I'll try and find the link and post this below, but yeah, this is really good stuff. And it only weighs, for this size footprint, 1.5 ounces more than the comparable Tyvek footprint. I think that's 1.5 ounces well worth having. I think it's also stronger and it's more waterproof than Tyvek. Well, Tyvek's meant to breathe anyway, so it's not inherently waterproof. Well, let me give you a brief history. So back in 2011, Shortcut and I went to an ADZ PCTKO, an annual Day Zero Pacific Crest Trail kickoff. Not with the idea of ever hiking the PCT, that didn't cross our minds at that point. What we wanted to do was look at lightweight backpacking tents, because we figured that the best way to shave off pounds on a tent was to use the trekking poles as supports and do away with the tent poles. That would save, we figured, at least £1 pound. So we wanted to go and review the lightweight manufacturer tents, and we ended up buying a Judy Lightheart tent, a Lightheart gear tent, a duo, and width-wise it was a more astute angled A. And the problem with that was that only one person could sit up in it at a time. So even though it had a fair amount of floor space, the actual amount of usable space was quite small. And the other problem with that tent was it was very prone to condensation. And when I mentioned this to Judy, she rather condescendingly, I thought, sent me back a PDF showing how to set up tents to minimize condensation. But several years later, I noticed that she changed the design and added a vent near the apex of the tent. So I think she implicitly agreed with me. She just didn't want to say she agreed with me. So anyway, we started looking around for another tent, and around that same time, Sierra Designs came out with a Tensegrity. So let me show you the Tensegrity. So here's the Tensegrity from the front. It has a large door in the front. It's also got this rolled up now, but you've seen it maybe in some of our other videos. Vestibule, or veranda, or porch, whatever you'd like to call it, that extends about, I don't know, 6 or 8 feet, and it makes a huge awning in front of the tent. So we've used that as a sunshade. We've used it to sit in the rain outside the tent eating dinner, and it works really well as a gear storage place. So the front of the tent, you'll notice, doesn't actually have a cover other than that large vestibule, which you can bring down at as acute an angle as you wish to try and seal up the front. And then on either side it has a triangular door, so we each have our own side door. And so the way we use this is to sleep on each side, of course, and then we each get in and out our own side, and we usually put the gear in front of the tent and access the gear through the front door. And then it does have one small pole. It has a 2.4 ounce DAC ultralight aluminum alloy pole, which forms this curve in the back of the tent. And I added this extra cord here, so I only need one stake in the back, and I can angle this and pull it tight however I want. And on the inside of the tent, you notice the bathtub extends all the way around, and although there's mesh here in the back, it's not exposed to the air because it's covered by this flap, and so there's no possibility of rainwater getting into the inside of the tent, inside the bathtub. And that turns out to be a problem in some tents, as I'll explain in a minute. So this was the tent really of our dreams. I think it's a fabulous design. But, okay, there's always a but. So before we started hiking the PCT last year, we read all the information about ultralight tents, and we were convinced that the tent we needed to buy for the PCT was the Zpacks Triplex tent. So for the PCT, I ordered the Zpacks Triplex tent, the most expensive tent by far that I'd ever bought, because actually the Tensegrity I got on sale at half price. Lucky me, all three of them. So the Zpacks tent I paid full price for, and we started out the PCT using that tent, but in the first major storm, actually this was before we started the PCT, the first major storm we slept through, I woke to find half a gallon of water in the bottom of the tent. I couldn't figure out what had happened, but it looks like my hair's on fire. But what actually happened was that my Neo sleeping pad had slipped down the tent in the middle of the night and pushed the bathtub floor out, so it protruded beyond the rainfly of the tent, and the rainfly was sheeting all the water inside the tent. So lesson learned, if you're using that tent in the rain, because it has about a 6-inch tall mesh all the way around the tent, you really have to pull the fly sheet tight to the ground, otherwise it's not going to work. And if you pull the fly sheet tight to the ground and you close the doors, you're going to have a major condensation problem. You never have a really major condensation problem in the Tensegrity. So after using that Triplex tent for about 2 weeks, I gave up on it and I went back to using the Tensegrity. The Tensegrity does weigh about a pound more, but it's got several advantages. It's got a much smaller footprint, even though it has about the same amount of usable space. So you can fit it into much smaller spaces. We can fit the Tensegrity in places we'd never have been able to get the Triplex in. And another problem with Zpacks, this is strike 2 for Zpacks in my book, is that we spent well over $1,000, 300 each for 2 backpacks and 600 plus for the tent plus accessories. It was about $1,500. And 2 weeks later, at Thanksgiving, they had a sale. If you spend $1,000 or more, you get a $100 discount. So since it had only been 2 weeks before that sale that I bought all this stuff, and they offer a 1-month return window, I called them up and I said, oh, I didn't call them, I emailed them because they have no phone number. That's another problem. It's very poor customer support. So I emailed them and I said, hey, look, I spent $1,500. Could I get this $100 rebate? And they said, no. It wasn't like, well, you know, it's been like 2 weeks and blah, 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 blah. Maybe we'll split the difference with you and give you $50. But it was, no, we're not going to give you anything. So I don't know what I was thinking. I must have been thinking at that point that Zpacks was doing me a favor by allowing me to buy their tent and backpacks, whereas really I was doing them a favor by purchasing from them. And I should have just sent everything back and say, okay, just give me my money back. I don't want to do business with you anymore. But we kept the tent, and now we still have the tent, and we'll probably never use it again. So, hey, if you want a Triplex, make me an offer. So anyway, so we used the Tensegrity until we got to Kennedy Meadows, and then I'd worn the trekking pole handle pockets out a second time, so we sent it back to Sierra Designs. They said they couldn't fix it, so we ended up buying a big Agnes copper Spur UL HV2 lightweight tent from REI that was on sale. We were lucky, and we had to use that tent for the rest of the PCT for 2,000 miles. So we used that copper Spur for 2,000 miles, and it was a pretty good tent. It was a pound heavier than the Tensegrity because it had poles. It was freestanding. So freestanding tents are good, but you know, they suffer from a couple of disadvantages. One is obviously the weight, and another is that they're not inherently waterproof until you get the fly sheet over them, whereas the Tensegrity and other single wall tents are all inherently waterproof as soon as you put them up. Well, before you put them up, if you have everything closed up. So we're using the Tensegrity for the Arizona Trail hike, and even though you can't buy it now, you know, maybe I've given you an idea of some things to look for in a tent. And you want one that's trekking pole supported, and you should protect the pockets if your handles have sharp edges, and try and find one, especially for 2 people, that doesn't come to an A in the middle, an apex. The biggest weight saving thing you can do if you're backpacking and want to save weight on the tent is to find somebody to share it with. Like Shortcut found me. She doesn't carry the tent. I have to carry the tent and the poles and the ground sheets.
I carried a sleeping bag.
Well, we're going to get to that next. So it's a total win for Shortcut. And, you know, a 2-person tent actually doesn't weigh much more than a 1-person tent. So you really want to find a significant other to share your tent with. That's a good way to save a lot of weight when you're through hiking, or backpacking in general for that matter.
Preferably one you get along with.
Yeah, it's helpful to have a partner you get along with. And we get along most of the time. Huh? Most of the time. So we hope this has been informative. I'd like to thank you for watching, and our next gear review will be, as Shortcut said, on our sleeping bag.